So, were you a fan of Hop Sing from Bonanza, the Western TV show Bonanza from back in the 1960s? Hop Sing was one of my favorite characters. I mean, he was really spunky and funny and was really one of those standout supporting actors on a TV show. Well, some of you who may be a little bit older, you might also remember that before Bonanza, he was already famous for the role of Jimmy Chan, Charlie Chan's number 2 son, in more than 50 Charlie Chan movies. Those were a little bit before my time, and I know quite a few of you have asked me, though, over the years to visit some of the cast members from the Charlie Chan movies, and the name was very familiar, but I just didn't remember growing up watching any of those movies. You know, maybe one or two, but I really don't remember much about the Charlie Chan movies at all, and had no idea that Hop Sing, or Victor Sen Young, the actor's name, was famous long before he was Hop Sing. And apparently, if there were more than 50 Charlie Chan movies, it must have been a very popular series. How many of you remember Charlie Chan in that movie series? So I was here at Greenlawn Memorial Park in Colma, California, just a little bit south of San Francisco. It's actually right next to Daly City, if you know where that is. And I was here about 6 months ago. Actually, a couple of years before that, I had also driven through the cemetery, not knowing that Hop Sing was laid to rest here. 6 months ago, I did know, and I came looking for his gravesite. Unfortunately, I had no GPS, so I went home, I called the cemetery, knowing that I would come back at some point in the future, and they were really nice, very helpful, and their copy machine or something was down, and she wasn't able to email me a map, so I just took the directions over the phone. Since I'd been to the cemetery already twice, I knew the layout of the cemetery, and I knew the buildings, the industrial buildings nearby, and so she gave me very good directions, so I was pretty confident that I would be able to find his gravesite today, and then I just double-checked when I arrived, and someone had already placed a GPS at his gravesite just recently, just in the last month or two. Because I'm pretty sure I called her just about a month or so ago and there was no GPS still. So thank you to whoever it was who placed the GPS on his Find a Grave Memorial page, which took me right to his gravesite. I pretty much knew the section where he was laid to rest because of the directions that I was given, but it still could have taken me an hour to find his gravesite, so you saved me probably an hour's worth of time at least. So thank you, that was very nice. Find a Grave is such a great community. There's so many helpful people out there tracking down grave sites of famous people and adding GPSs. As you know, I try to add GPSs. I try to remember to add GPSs whenever I visit a grave site that doesn't have one. And I would say the majority of them that I visit don't have GPSs. Now, something else I didn't know about Victor Sen Young is that he was the victim of a hijacking back in 1972. Do any of you remember this? He was on board Pacific Southwest Airlines Flight 710 when it was hijacked. The FBI stormed the plane, and Young was actually shot in the lower back during the gunfire. He and another wounded passenger survived, but a third passenger and 2 hijackers were killed. Do any of you remember that news story? For some reason, I don't remember hearing about that at all. Back in 1972. That must have been a terrifying experience, and thankfully he survived, living another, I guess, 8 years. He died on November 1st, 1980, in North Hollywood at the age of 65. His sad, untimely death was accidental from natural gas poisoning caused by a gas leak at his home in North Hollywood. His body was discovered on November 9th, but he had apparently died at least a week earlier. Now, I know that many of you are very observant and will notice that the spelling of his name on his headstone and on his Find a Grave Memorial page are different. And even his date of death is off by a year. As I've discovered over the years of visiting cemeteries, this is actually not that uncommon, and it's often very difficult to know exactly which name and date is correct, especially with entertainers who often use different stage names during their careers. Victor's birth name apparently was Sen Young, but he also went by Sen Young, spelled Y-U-N-G, and Sen Young, spelled Y-O-U-N-G, Victor Sen Young, and Victor Young. So I just thought I would mention this before you asked. It appears that he was never married, and that he's laid to rest here with his father, his sister, and his mother. Sadly, his mother died very young during the influenza epidemic of 1919. So if you enjoyed this video today, please give it a thumbs up. And thank you to all of you who have taken the time to subscribe. And if you were a fan of Victor Sen Young, Hop Sing, or Jimmy Chan, feel free to leave your personal memories about him down in the comments section. And until our next trip to the cemetery together, thanks for sharing the memories, everybody.